I am Elena Ashcroft, and I am 34 years old. For 6 years, I had never been late to work. Not once. I was the kind of woman executives depended on without realizing it. Meetings began on time because I made sure they did. Flights were booked before calendars filled. Crises dissolved quietly because I handled them before panic reached the boardroom. At Ravenport Group, precision was my identity. Reliability was my currency. And that was why the digital clock above the Human Resources office, flashing 9:52 a.m., felt less like a time and more like a verdict. Before we continue, please like, comment, and subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from. Stories like this are about choices we make when no one is watching, and your support helps these stories reach people who need them. I sat upright in the stiff chair across from HR, my coat half-buttoned, my arm throbbing beneath the sleeve. The pain was sharp but manageable. What hurt more was the expression on Marilyn Foster's face, sympathetic, exhausted, already resigned. She slid a document across the desk toward me without meeting my eyes. "Elena," she sighed, folding her hands, "this is your third late arrival in 5 weeks. Company policy is very clear." My gaze dropped to the paper. Termination was printed in bold at the top. "I've never been late before this month," I said quietly. "Not once. Not in 6 years." Marilyn nodded, her mouth tightening. "And that's exactly why this is difficult. But without documentation, we can't make exceptions." I swallowed. My throat burned. I didn't have time to document what happened. She looked up. "What happened?" I hesitated. Then, softly, I said, "Someone could have died." The room went still. Marilyn blinked. "Excuse me?" I shook my head, tears pressing dangerously close. "It doesn't matter. I just need you to know. I didn't oversleep. I wasn't careless." She stood, smoothing her blazer. "I'm sorry, Elena. Your access badge will be deactivated by noon." When I walked out of the building I had once considered home, my footsteps echoed too loudly in the marble lobby. I stepped into the cold morning air and whispered to myself, "I chose right, didn't I?" 3 weeks earlier, my mornings had followed a different rhythm. I used to stop at Linden Square Park, balancing a cup of bitter coffee while watching commuters rush past with purpose carved into their faces. That's when I noticed the boy. He couldn't have been more than 10. Thin. Quiet. Always wearing a hoodie far too big for his small frame. He sat on the same bench near the fountain every morning, flipping through torn comic books like they were priceless artifacts. The first time, I ignored him. The second time, I noticed he never ate. The third morning, I stopped. "Hey," I said gently, holding up a paper bag. "I bought too much. Want a pastry?" He looked at me like I was a trap. "I'm not supposed to talk to strangers." I smiled. "That's a smart rule. I'm Elena. You don't have to tell me your name." After a long pause, he reached for the bag. "Thanks," he whispered. From then on, it became routine. I brought him breakfast. Never asked questions. Never pushed. Some mornings we talked. Some mornings we sat in silence. "Do you have family?" I asked once. He shrugged. "Sort of." Another day, I asked, "Why here every morning?" He looked away. "It's quiet. Nobody looks for me here." Something twisted painfully in my chest. I started arriving late to work, 5 minutes at first. Then 10. Then 15. I told myself it was temporary. "You shouldn't be alone," I said one morning. He shrugged. "It's better than being watched." I didn't understand what he meant. Not yet. The morning everything shattered, I was handing him a bottle of juice when I felt it, that prickle along my spine. Instinct. Fear without explanation. 2 men stood too close. One pretended to check his phone. The other scanned the park like a hunter. "Is that your sister?" the taller one asked casually. The boy froze. I stepped forward instantly. "He's with me. We're leaving." The shorter man smiled thinly. "This doesn't concern you, lady." "It does now." I grabbed the boy's wrist and turned, but the taller man lunged. Everything happened at once. A blade flashed. Heat exploded across my arm. Pain screamed through my body. I shoved the boy away. "Run!" He hesitated. "Now!" I screamed. He ran. The men fled when people began shouting. I collapsed onto the pavement, blood soaking through my sleeve. At the police station later, an officer asked, "Did you know the child?" "No," I said. "I just knew he needed help." "You're lucky," the detective said grimly. "Those men are connected to something serious." I stayed until midday, giving statements, refusing medical treatment until they confirmed the boy was safe. By the time I reached work, I was nearly 2 hours late. I never explained. The next morning, my neighbor's television blared through the thin apartment walls. Breaking news. The missing son of billionaire industrialist Victor Langston had been found safe. My breath caught. The screen showed a familiar face, cleaned up, hair neatly combed, standing beside a shaken man in an expensive suit. "That's him," I whispered. "That's the boy." The anchor continued. Authorities confirmed the child had been sneaking away from home. A brave woman intervened during a kidnapping attempt. Her identity remains confidential. My phone rang. "Ms. Ashcroft," a man said. "This is Detective Hale. You're in danger." My heart dropped. "The men you stopped are tied to organized crime," he said. "They don't like loose ends." "I just helped a kid," I whispered. "You helped the wrong kid." I hung up and stared at the wall. I had lost my job. Now I might lose my life. Still, when I thought of the boy's terrified eyes, I whispered, I'd do it again. 2 days later, a black SUV stopped outside my apartment. A man in a dark suit knocked. "Ms. Ashcroft. My name is Julian Cross. I head security for Victor Langston." My chest tightened. "Mr. Langston wants to thank the woman who saved his son." I laughed bitterly. "Your company fired me." Julian froze. "What?" That evening, I sat across from Victor Langston himself, tired, shaken, sincere. "I owe you everything," he said. "You saved my son." "With respect," I replied. "Your system didn't think much of that." His jaw tightened. "That will be corrected." I met his gaze. "I don't want my old job back. I wanted something bigger." The night after I met Victor Langston, sleep refused to come. The city outside my apartment buzzed as if nothing had changed, but everything had. Every passing car made my shoulders tense. Every sound in the hallway sent my pulse racing. I sat on the edge of my bed with the lamp on, my phone clutched in my hand like it could protect me. Losing my job had hurt. Being threatened was something else entirely. Fear had weight. It pressed into my chest, making it hard to breathe. When the knock finally came, soft, deliberate, my heart nearly stopped. "Elena Ashcroft," a familiar voice said through the door. "It's Detective Hale." I opened it slowly. He stood there with another officer, both of them serious. "You need to pack a bag," Hale said. "Now." My stomach dropped. "What happened?" "Your name showed up on a private corporate server tonight," he replied. "Encrypted. Not public email. Executive-level access." I stared at him. "For what?" "For you," he said. "Someone sent a ransom-style message demanding $2 million to ensure your safety." My hands began to shake. "That doesn't make sense." "Who would?" "This wasn't random," Hale cut in. "It means an insider. Someone who understands Langston Group's security systems." As I packed, my thoughts spiraled. "This is my fault," I whispered. "If I hadn't stopped that morning." Hale shook his head. "You didn't create this mess. You exposed it." As we were escorted downstairs, I asked quietly, "Does Victor know?" "Yes," Hale replied. "And he's furious." For the first time since this began, something unexpected stirred beneath the fear. I wasn't alone anymore. Victor slammed his palm onto the glass conference table hard enough to make it rattle. "Run the access logs again," he snapped. "No assumptions. I want facts." Julian Cross stood nearby, jaw tight. "We've already done it twice." The breach came from a dormant executive account. Victor froze. "Dormant?" Julian nodded. "Belonged to someone terminated 18 months ago. HR dispute. Wrongful termination claim." Victor leaned back slowly. "Name?" Julian hesitated. "Marissa Klein." The name landed like a blow. Victor remembered her well, brilliant, volatile, convinced the company had destroyed her life. "She knew our systems," Victor muttered. "She knew my routines." "And now," Julian said quietly, "she knows Elena." Victor stared out at the city. "Get her somewhere secure. No hotels. No obvious locations. Already done." The safe house was modest, unremarkable. That was the point. Victor arrived late that night. I looked up when he entered, surprise flickering across my exhaustion. "You didn't have to come," I said. "I did," he replied. "I owe you more than thanks." Silence settled between us. "I never meant to drag you into this," I said finally. "You didn't," he replied. "I dragged myself out of ignorance." He exhaled. "I built a company obsessed with rules and missed the people those rules crushed." I studied him carefully. "Then don't miss this. Fix it." He nodded. "I will." The plan was dangerous. Everyone knew it. "We used the ransom demand," Detective Hale explained. "Draw her out. My chest tightened. You want to use me as bait? Only if you agree, he said. Victor stood sharply. Absolutely not. I raised a hand. Victor. His fear was raw. I already lost you once today, he said. I won't again. You didn't lose me, I said quietly. You finally saw me. If Marissa Klein was behind this, she wouldn't stop. Not for me. Not for Victor's son. This had started with a child in a park, and it wouldn't end until the truth surfaced. After a long silence, Victor nodded once. I'll be there, he said. Every step. The exchange was set at an abandoned shipping yard near the river. The money was marked. Security was hidden. My hands trembled as I spoke into the burner phone. I'm here. A laugh crackled through the speaker. Good. You should have stayed fired. She stepped from the shadows moments later, eyes wild with fury. You took everything from me, Marissa screamed, not at Victor, but at me. I was invisible until you showed up. You did this to yourself, I said, voice shaking but firm. A gun appeared in her hand. Gunfire shattered the night. I felt a sharp impact and went down hard, breath knocked from my lungs. Victor's voice cut through the chaos, shouting my name. Sirens wailed. Marissa was tackled, screaming curses as she was dragged away. I'm okay, I gasped, though blood seeped through my jacket. Victor held my hand tightly. You scared me, he said hoarsely. I smiled faintly. Good. Means you're human. Weeks later, I stood in a bright boardroom, not as an assistant, but as the head of a newly formed People and Ethics division. Policies should protect people, I said steadily, not punish them for compassion. Victor watched from the doorway, pride unmistakable. After the meeting, he approached. Dinner, he asked, tentative. As equals, I said. Outside, his son waited by the car, waving shyly. I waved back, my heart full. I had lost a job, but gained purpose. The quiet came later. Not immediately, not after the sirens, not after the hospital lights, not after the headlines burned bright and disappeared just as fast. The quiet arrived weeks later, slow and unfamiliar, settling into life the way dust settles on furniture you no longer use. Recovery was not dramatic. It was slow mornings and cautious movements. It was bandages changed without ceremony and nightmares that faded only after sunrise. The wound in my side healed faster than the one beneath my ribs, the one that carried the weight of almost losing everything for doing what felt unavoidable. I returned to work gradually. The first morning I walked back into Langston Group's headquarters. I arrived early. Not because anyone expected it, but because I needed to stand alone in that building before it filled with people and purpose. The glass walls reflected a version of me that looked steadier than I felt. Stronger, perhaps. Or simply more honest. Victor found me there, standing by the window, watching the city wake. You don't owe this place anything, he said quietly. I know, I replied. That's why I'm here. He nodded. The board approved everything. Compassionate leave. Emergency discretion. Flexible scheduling across departments. Good, I said. Then what happened to me won't happen again. Victor exhaled slowly. I used to think fairness meant treating everyone the same. Now I understand it means listening when rules fail. I studied him for a moment. Growth looks uncomfortable on powerful men. He laughed softly. You have no idea. Outside the glass walls, employees moved differently now. Slower. Less afraid. The change wasn't loud, but it was real. His son returned to Linden Square Park on a quiet Saturday morning. I noticed him immediately, hands shoved into his jacket pockets, eyes scanning the familiar fountain. He approached the bench hesitantly, like it might disappear if he touched it. You don't have to sit there anymore, I said gently. He shrugged. I wanted to say goodbye to it. Then quietly, you saved me. Not just from them. From myself. I crouched to his level. You were never lost, I said. You were hiding. His eyes shone. Victor watched from a distance, regret heavy on his shoulders. I miss so much, he admitted later. I thought providing was the same as protecting. It's not too late, I said. He nodded. I don't want to lead the way I used to. After a pause, he added, and I don't want to pretend what I feel for you is just gratitude. My heart skipped, but I kept my voice steady. Then don't pretend. Dinner? He asked, this time without hesitation. Dinner, I agreed. Months passed. My name stopped being whispered in hallways and started being spoken with respect. Employees stopped me, not for favors, but to say thank you. Stories reached my desk daily. Quiet emergencies that once would have been punished were now met with understanding. Healing, I learned, was not dramatic. It was consistent. Victor listened more. His son laughed more. And for the first time in years, I slept through the night. On the anniversary of the incident, I returned to Linden Square Park alone. I sat on the bench, feeling the sun warm my face, and whispered to myself, "You chose right." This time there was no doubt. I had lost comfort but gained meaning. Lost safety but found strength. And in choosing compassion when it cost me everything, I had built a life no rigid system could take away. On a quiet evening months later, I stood on the balcony of my small apartment. The city hummed below like a living thing that never truly slept. Victor leaned beside me, not speaking, simply present, and that felt like the greatest change of all. "I used to think endings had to be loud," I said. "Apologies. Announcements. Promises made in big rooms." "And now?" he asked. "Now I think endings are just decisions you keep honoring." He nodded. "Then I choose this. Every ordinary day." Inside, his son laughed at something on television. Safe. Grounded. No longer invisible. I breathed deeply, feeling the weight I once carried finally lift. The story had never been about losing a job or stopping crime. It had been about choosing compassion when it was inconvenient, choosing truth when silence was easier, and choosing people over systems that forgot why they existed. As the city lights flickered on one by one, the night settled gently around us, not as an ending, but as proof that some stories don't close. They finally begin. Please like, comment, and subscribe for more stories like this. And tell us where you're watching from in the comment section.